Your 2024 fantasy football seasons are over, but have no fear because there is DFS to play. We're going to be covering all of your NFL playoff games, starting here with Wild Card Weekend. This video is going to be breaking down the Minnesota Vikings versus the Los Angeles Rams and helping you set the most optimal DFS showdown lineups. So stay tuned. Oh, Captain, my captain, this is Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown slate videos. I am your host, Joshua Hudson. You can find me at the One Hudsonian. That, of course, our DFS expert here at Club Fantasy, Austin Amandolia. Find him at Austin_FFL. Austin, more DFS to talk about. 'Tis the season, baby.
It's a great time of year, and it's going to be fun because we disagree on some of these players, and that always makes for a fun episode.
No, it makes for a fun episode because when I disagree with you, you're always right. So be prepared, people. This is where you listen to Austin, all right? Tell everybody, Austin, where they can play these DFS Showdown slate video or slates. I've done this 3 times recording these videos. Play these slates against us here at Club Fantasy.
So you can go to DraftKings and join our Club Fantasy FFL League. There is a link in the show description where you can click it. It'll take you right to that league to join. We will be running a contest for every single one of these games, and we also have a Saturday slate contest and a Sunday slate contest. So there are 8 different ways that you can come and try and take our money this weekend.
And then the 9th way, where we can, get some of your money. Check out our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football, and their great partnership with Trophy Smack. Head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF and get all of your achievement-based needs, because we know that you won yourself a fantasy football championship because you listen to us here at Club Fantasy. So let's celebrate that. Get yourself a championship belt, championship trophy, or championship ring. All of it is designed to celebrate you. And the best part, when you go to that direct link, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF, you are helping us support women in sports. Women in Fantasy Football is able to send some great women to the Super Bowl this year. We want to be able to provide them more than just passes. So when you use that direct link to purchase your achievement-based products from Trophy Smack, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF, all that goes to help out women in sports. And from now until January 31st, get yourself a championship belt or trophy and get a free ring with the promo code WOFF when you use that at checkout, WOFF. Once again, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. All right, Austin, let's get into it. Our first category is Captain Chalk. These are the chalky captains that everyone is likely to play because you know the name and they're just that damn good. And leading things off, been a passing of the baton of sorts this season because Mr. Puka Nacua is dominating the once Cooper Kupp role in this Rams offense.
Yeah, Puka Nacua has just been absolutely stellar, and I do think that he ends up being probably the highest roster, at least non-quarterback in this slate. Even with Justin Jefferson in this lineup, because I do think that people are going to shy away from the Vikings a little bit after they couldn't get anything done against the Detroit Lions. They may be like, maybe I'm good with the Vikings. And people still don't really believe in Sam Darnold, which understandable. And so I do see Nacua as likely the highest rostered player. And I think it's totally fair. And it's probably wise to go after him because of how much volume he's getting. There's honestly more competition for touches on the Minnesota side of the ball. Puka Nacua is going to be getting 10 targets easily in this matchup, potentially 10 catches. It's going to be pretty good for him. So I think it's totally fine to go with him in the chalk spot. I do want to diversify off of that a little bit. I have some interest in some other guys on that Rams side of the ball. But if you're playing one contest, if you're playing small field, if you're playing cash, play Puka Nacua in your captain spot.
This is the thing that gets me. Minnesota's got a terrible secondary. They give up so many yards and so many points to the wide receiver position. How in God's name did Byron Murphy get voted to the Pro Bowl? I hate people that just pay attention to interceptions. But here's the irony. They voted Byron Murphy and left off Lions safety Kirby Joseph, who leads the league in interceptions. Just wild to me. Sorry, random tangent. Next category here, the Mutineer. These are going to be your contrarian captain choices that offer some variety and upside in these larger tournament fields. We're going to save the disagreement for last year. Let's flip the script. Let's go to one of these Vikings wide receivers that you think that people are going to be shying away from. And it's not Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do in these showdown slates, and I've mentioned this in other segments, is target the wide receiver 2 in the captain spot because they can have just as much upside as the wide receiver 1, but they have lower rostership. So I'm looking at Jordan Addison. We have seen him have 30-point games and Justin Jefferson not get utilized at all. Justin Jefferson is also he is a player that has not been targeted that heavily against man coverage this year, whereas that ends up taking the Jordan Addison role. So to the extent that the Rams are playing man coverage, that'll benefit Addison. But either way, it's a way to get different from Jordan Addison or from Justin Jefferson, play Addison instead, and still get the access to the high volume upside because Addison is a pretty stellar wide receiver too. I think this is going to be a close battle. And honestly, I think that people, like I said, I think people are going to want to lean into the Rams a little bit more. I think it's still fair to go and target Minnesota here. I think that they can still pull this out and make a deep run into the playoffs. And so I like taking Jordan Addison and betting on the Vikings to win this game.
So I'm going to preface my statement here with I love me some Jordan Addison. But the reason that I personally would be fading most any and all of these Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold ain't got the huevos in big games. Okay. There's a reason he couldn't hack it in New York. Can't play in the big game. We saw exactly what happened last week where they banged up Lions secondary. And they said, you ain't doing shit. And they scored all of 9 points. Just throwing that out there for those that are going to be setting your DFS lineups this week. But I do agree with you, Austin. At a certain point, you do have to get different. And I do love me some Jordan Addison. So let's flip the script a little bit. You already touched on Puka Nacua. Here's the biggest disagreement we have on this entire slate. Because while I do agree that Cooper Kupp is very contrarian, he ain't done shit the last month of the season and has looked like a 32-year-old wide receiver.
Yeah, well, now he's a 32-year-old wide receiver that has 2 weeks of rest. So that counts for something, right? I mean, the target volume is just there. He's still getting.
Is it though? Because Puka Nacua has been soaking up all those targets.
Yes, okay, that is fair. Puka Nacua has gotten a lot of targets, but Cooper Kupp has also gotten a lot of targets. And I think, honestly, like this is like I will often play like 3-entry max contests in for showdown slates. And if I'm doing that, like one of them is going to have Cooper Kupp in the captain spot because even though he hasn't, you're right, the target volume has not been there in the past 3 weeks. But before then, it was there. It wasn't that long ago. He had a. I'm looking at this now. I'm like, oh, whoops, that didn't work out. But he has reached double-digit targets 3 times this year. It's been a minute. I do buy into him coming off of rest, though. I do think that's going to benefit. And I think to your point, the fact that Minnesota gives up so many points to the receiver. Yeah, they give up a ton of points to the receiving position. They have a bad secondary. Also, they blitz a lot. And I think Matthew Stafford is going to be ready to pick apart the blitz. And I think that'll actually benefit somebody like Cooper Kupp, who can help make some positive matchups when they're blitzing. So I like the idea of coming back to him. I think it's especially good in large field tournaments. Like if I'm playing one of those 10,000 entry or 10,000 person contest, I want to have some Cooper Kupp in those because I think it's the easiest way to get different. it's part of the nature of this. It's like a game theory play. It might not always feel like the best player, and I think that's totally understandable and fine. But to me, it's one of the easiest ways to give yourself the upside to take down a tournament.
This is why I love doing these videos with you, because you think like a DFS player. I think like a fantasy football player, right? So this is why you're much better at this than me. But also, I'm not touching Cooper Cup. All right, the next category here is the first mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew. These are going to be the standouts that maximize your lineup. We've talked a little bit about kind of fading the Vikings, not necessarily that we're fading them, but because most of the public might be. So let's talk a little bit about Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkins.
Yeah, I mean, both of them have a really solidified role on the Vikings side of the ball. And basically, my thinking here is like on the Rams side of the ball, you have a fairly condensed target tree. It's going to be Puka Nacua. It's going to be running the ball to Kyron Williams, and then it's going to be Cooper Kupp, and then there'll be like a little bit of a third guy. Whereas to me, like looking at guys like TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, having either one of them in your lineup, you can be guaranteed that they're going to be getting it at least 5 to 8 targets. I think for both of them. This is also, if I remember correctly, a good matchup for the tight end spot. I hope I remember that correctly. Yes, the Rams have allowed the second most points of any of the 12 teams playing this weekend to the tight end position since week 14. They've averaged 19 points per game allowed to the tight end position. So it is a beneficial matchup for TJ Hawkinson. But really, either one of these guys is just to say, like, you should play Vikings players. Like, even though that they were down last week, I think it's worth going after them, especially if you're playing it as if the Rams have more output from a fantasy perspective and you have Nacua or Kupp in your captain spot. I think this is going to be a back and forth game, and you're going to want to have those Vikings players in your lineup as well.
Yeah, and let's not forget that while the Rams defense has definitely turned for the better, Quentin Lake still sucks. He can be a leader on that defense all he wants. Justin Jefferson will eat if Sam Darnold can get him the football. All right, next category is going to be the deck scrubbers, the cheaper punt plays that can make a lineup based on one play and limited opportunity. Let's stick with the Rams side. A couple options here. Tyler Higbee, since coming back, has sort of regained that starting role at the tight end position for the Rams.
Yeah, and you might look and say, like, oh, he played in week 18 when Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford
scored a touchdown
and Kyron Williams weren't playing, and say, like, oh, well, I guess he's the backup tight end now. I don't think that's the case. I think this was an opportunity to ramp Tyler Higbee back up into performance. It was a great opportunity because they were sitting most of their starters, and it allowed him to get more integrated back into the offense after coming off an injury. And I think that continues in this matchup, especially in this playoff matchup where they're going to need all the help they can get to win this game. Like, say what you want about Sam Darnold, I think the Vikings likely win this game. And if they don't, it's going to be because everybody chipped in on the Rams side, including Tyler Higbee. And he's also very cheap from a salary perspective. So it's nice because there's a bunch of expensive players on there. I should also say we are not talking about either of the quarterbacks on this, but you should play the quarterbacks with the receivers you're playing. Just making sure that's very clear. Like if you have Puka Nacua as your captain, you should play Matthew Stafford. And same deal with Sam Darnold. If you have Jordan Addison as your captain, you should play Sam Darnold because like that stack is going to give you the most upside. So don't forget to play those quarterbacks. But also in this segment, I wanted to just throw out Tutu Atwell again. We've actually talked about him before on these showdown slates because he gets a lot of volume, which has really surprised me. It's kind of been the thing that's happened this year. He is the third most targeted player for the Rams. He's now ahead of Demarcus Robinson for targets, and Demarcus Robinson has been a little bit banged up. Hasn't really been productive recently, but Atwell also has the third most catches on the season. He has the third most receiving yards. The only thing he doesn't do is score touchdowns. So a little bit of a downside there, but if he gets in the end zone this week and bucks that trend, then he's going to help you be optimal in your lineup.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you mentioned Tutu Atwell being third on this team in receptions. they completely have stopped throwing to the running back position. Kieran Williams is basically a 2-down thumper at this point, and you're praying for a touchdown. I wanted to bring this up because much like you said, we haven't mentioned the quarterbacks. Well, we haven't mentioned really the star running backs either for this team. Rams' run defenses have been really good, which could potentially take Aaron Jones out of a higher scoring opportunity. Kind of the same thing on the flip side here with Kieran Williams as well, especially because he does not catch passes. So just wanted to preface that. Friendly reminder, once again, you can play these DFS Showdown slates against us. Hit the link in the description, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast network. It'll take you right over to DraftKings where you can play this particular slate as well as others against us and probably take your money or take our money because, let's face it, we're a site of the people, and this is what we do. We like to give back. Our last topic here, last section. The Kraken, one of my favorites. It's the lineup trap that sinks the ship. A lot of options here. We talked previously about Tyler Higbee. Probably why you're fading Colby Parkinson, right?
Yes, exactly. I think Parkinson was kind of the main tight end for most of the season, but with Higbee back, I think it's too risky to go after Colby Parkinson. I think they're going to really get Higbee, continue to integrate him into this offense, and Parkinson's going to kind of fade to the background. So it might seem contrarian, and it will be contrarian. He will be very lowly rostered. I don't think there's going to be the upside there anymore because they don't really use multiple tight ends. They really just stick to kind of one tight end. Sean McVay has a history of that. So I wouldn't try and get too cute or creative at the tight end spot for the Rams this week.
Yeah, we've talked a little really throughout the show. We've mentioned some Vikings, sure, but because of their performance last week, you're going to have some maybe, novice or casual DFS players, especially when you're talking like cash or some of these smaller tournaments, that might just be overlooking the Vikings altogether.
I think you should be calling them haters because
or that, like me.
I do think there are going to be some haters on the Vikings this week that are going to say like, I'm not playing the Vikings. Look at what they just did against the Lions. They put up 9 points. Come on, I'm not doing that. This team can still put up 30. They still have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They have one of the best receiving cores in the league. Sam Darnold, he had a down week. I'm not worried about it. I feel like he's going to be able to bounce back this week. They'll have a good game plan ready to go for him. I personally also, side note, didn't love the play calling in the red zone for the Vikings last week. I think the play calling had a little bit to do with the fact that they didn't score or that they couldn't keep up with the Lions. They scored touchdowns 2 of the times that they are in the red zone. Much different outcome, much different score context for that game. And so I think that they make some adjustments this week. It's more competitive. So don't overlook them and act like they're going to just get knocked out and roll over. I think there's a chance that they're at minimum going to push the Rams to make it competitive. And I think there's a good chance they win it.
One last time, head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Get all of your achievement-based needs. And from now until January 31st, with the purchase of a championship belt or trophy, get yourself a free ring. Use promo code WOFF. That's WOFF. Help us continue our efforts to support women in sports. He is Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL. I'm Joshua Hudson at the One Hudsonian. You, of course, can and should follow Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL across the socials. URL is clubfantasyffl.com. We are going to be covering DFS Showdown slates throughout the entire NFL playoffs, beginning here with Wildcard Weekend. This, of course, has been the Minnesota Vikings versus the Los Angeles Rams. You can check out the channel on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe to this video and channel wherever you are listening to, watching as well. And check out all of the other videos we've done for Wildcard Weekend. For Austin and myself, until next time.